Oh, it's a gentle journey, worthy of the wait, like the wild goose flying with its own.
Is it this or is it that? This. La 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 la. And we are recording. Gordon Dundas, welcome to episode 8.
And absolutely good to be here for episode 8. This is our 36th episode, is it, or something like that?
Oh, yes.
Unbelievable, unbelievable.
36 episodes, 67 countries, Gordon. It's a juggernaut.
Absolutely. And we have a very special guest. Let's be honest. We've got the big boss on Whisky Unscripted.
I'm only 5'8".
Leonard, how are you?
I'm very well indeed.
And overnight news, some very interesting overnight news. Top 200 best one to watch, is that right?
Yeah, we did. I don't know if it's a clerical error or what, but there was a competition. Well, Sunday, the Sunday Times do a thing on the top 200 growing companies, and we won an award for not being one of them. Actually, there was a sector for ones to watch, and I've always been called one to watch. And this is from my maths teacher. But no, very good. It's really great, and actually, it's an accolade for the team because our exports have been growing over the last few years with Edinburgh Gin and with our whiskies, Glengoyne and Tam Do. So to get an accolade like that, it just shows that as a team, we're doing a really good job. You're doing a really good job.
Well, that's always, Leonard, myself and Gordon usually end up in the red tops. You know, it's nice to get you in a broadsheet there. That's wonderful. Yeah. Would you ever have thought that would have been the case 20, 30 years ago? Sunday Times one to watch?
No, I didn't. No, I really didn't. And actually, to grow your exports, you need to be in the gambling business or service industry. It's quite difficult to grow.
Or arms.
The exports really quickly.
Arms, you can grow your export if you sell arms.
You could go into, but you shouldn't fire guns and drink. That's
a very good point.
Make love, not war. That was what I said at the interview. Leonard, as is tradition at this point in Whisky Unscripted, before we get into any meat and drink of the show, we have to ask the immortal question: what are you drinking? What are we tasting?
Today, because you said I should bring a whiskey, I thought I would just drink the samples, really.
Quite right.
What most people do in McLeod. So I've got 3 samples here, drawn from single casks, and
fabulous.
As you can see, I've drunk some of that, but look at the colour of these, and that one. Look at that.
Beautiful,
look at that.
beautiful.
Darker, much darker.
Probably a sherry there, I would imagine, a bourbon in the middle, I would guess. And
I would say yes. Oh, how can
and at this point, if you're listening on Podbean or you're listening on the earphones, we have a YouTube channel. Go to the YouTube channel and you will visually see what Leonard's holding up. Sorry, Leonard, carry on.
Oh, sorry. So there's First Fill Sherry, but from 1991. That's what that is.
Look at the
and I have
to
say,
beautiful.
It was absolutely delicious. So what happened actually is my aged father, who's 94, he came here for Sunday lunch one day, and I had these samples, and he drank that. He drank that.
Nice.
Yes.
Absolutely. That's a secret of old age, drinking.
I know, but that's not the one he chose.
You got to be sure, though.
The one he chose is empty.
Right.
And so, all 3 of us, my father, my son, and I, all thought that one of the casks was just exceptional.
And ladies and gentlemen, you'll hear more about this in the coming months.
Oh, unanimous vote.
It's the first time the 3 of us have ever really agreed on anything. We're going to bottle it, I think.
Yep, that's very exciting. Very exciting. Well, good. I'm drinking, and speaking of your father, I'm drinking Legacy Chapter 2, which is a celebration of the Russell family, and obviously, the sort of where we are now at Glengoyne compared to when it was taken over in 2003, which we will touch upon.
Yep.
So I'm drinking this beautiful bourbon forward, which is pretty rare for Glengoyne.
And I'm holding up Tam Do 12, because I hope we are recording the weekends of the Spaceside Festival. So I thought we'll hopefully talk about the Tam Do Distillery as well, but I'm having a Tam Do 12, 43 ABV, wonderfully smooth. And
smooth. I don't drink that, and I'll tell you why. Because when it's too Moorish.
Yes.
Yeah. No, you're right.
We'll see how this podcast goes. Slanjava,
Slanger. Cheers.
Yeah. Well,
oh, yes.
There we go.
52% alcohol.
Very Moorish.
Absolutely.
Now, Leonard, we wanted to start.
I've got stuff to do later today. Am I going to have to go to bed after this?
No, you can just have a little sip. Have we not told you, Leonard, that every time we do Whiskey Unscripted, we take the rest of the day off? Have we not told you that?
No, I do like that.
Yeah, beautiful. It sounds gorgeous.
Sweet toffee nose to it.
Nice. Yeah.
Beautiful, actually.
Good.
Really nice. I've got some. I just thought we'd like to get to know Leonard, and I thought it'd be quite interesting to get to know the company before we moved off into the podcast. We're cognizant of the fact that people might not know yourself, Leonard, or the company. Now, you're called Leonard Russell, but the company's called Ian McLeod. Just even in the broad brushstrokes, why is that the case?
Because at one time we had two companies. We had Peter J. Russell and Company that worked within the trade, buying and selling whiskey within the trade as blenders and bottlers and whiskey brokers. And then for the bottled business, when we bought the Isle of Skye brand, it belonged to Ian McLeod and Company. So it was Angus McLeod. And I'm still friendly with his son, Neil, who I think went into Revolution vodka bars. Anyway, that's why the company's called Ian McLeod. And also Russell's an English name. My great-grandfather was English from Kent.
Okay.
And my grandfather moved to Scotland in his early 30s.
Right. There we go.
Yeah.
And so obviously started off, as you said, 1933. Is that correct?
Do you know how we started?
Yes. No, I'd love you to tell us.
My grandfather, who was also called Leonard, he was born in Kent, and he worked for a bank, and he wasn't happy in that. And so he wanted to get another job. And his aunt was Miss Harper, who owned Harper's Wine and Spirit Gazette.
All right.
And they are a trade magazine, and they were predominantly for the wine shippers in England. But Miss Harper said to my grandfather, well, just you go up to Scotland and sell some advertising space on the front of the magazine, which is what he did. So he came up to Scotland and he lived in Edinburgh, but mainly worked in Glasgow, because in those days they were all family companies, the Dewars, the Dewars, and all these different family companies. Yeah, Langs. Oh, there were many, very many. So he didn't have that much money, but he used to go first class on the train. There were 3 classes on the train, but he'd go first class on the train because he would, in the morning, be sitting with Mr. Dewar or Mr. Stewart or whatever. And so he would either buy and sell whiskey by the time he got to Glasgow, and then he would just come back home. Anyway, he did very well. And I think in the early 30s, he made £10,000 profit, which was a very large, he did very well. And we learned from him, and we still stick to his rules of dealing with people that you like, and always leave a shilling for the other man, and do a deal on a handshake, and never, ever cheat anyone. And that's the way that the whiskey industry works.
It is. And I think, when you think about all those times back in the 40s, 50s, when all that whiskey, as it still does, moves around the industry, there's a lot of trust, there's a lot of relationships, there's a lot of goodwill that is out there. And that's one of the secrets to this industry. Would you agree? Yes,
certainly. And that goodwill still goes on today. We trade with most of the larger whiskey distillers and do exchanges, and it's because we've built up mutual trust, understanding, and dare I say, friendship, which of course easily comes when you have one of these.
Yes.
Absolutely,
And just
absolutely.
at this point, again, for people that maybe not as familiar with the industry as possible, could Leonard and Gordon explain whiskey brokering? What was it, and why was it a thing back in the day?
Well, because there were so many independent family companies, each with their own brands, but they didn't want each other to know what they were doing. And so if they were doing well, they needed more whiskey. If they weren't doing as well as they'd anticipated, they wanted to sell some. So my grandfather was a broker, and he would buy and sell between them, but no one knew where it came from or where it was going to.
Right.
And he took a much smaller margin than the brokers do nowadays, I believe.
And I think the other thing that's fundamental is that, you know, even blends today from certain companies are not just using whiskey from their companies; they're using whiskey from other businesses, which is traded for. You know, this movement of whiskey is one of the successes of the Scotch whiskey industry, if we're honest.
Yes, we collaborate.
Yeah, exactly.
As long as you make a good malt whiskey, people will want to exchange it with you.
Absolutely. And whereas you look at, let's look at Japan, for example, a much more modern industry, approaching 100 years actually, but there's no trading within Japanese whiskey at all. So you can't, you know, so that has historically meant they've obviously relied historically on Scotch whiskey, which has gone into Japan, but they're now tightening up that area as well from their perspective. So, I mean, I think, you know, it just sort of shows you the success of the collaborative approach of blends ultimately in Scotch whiskey has allowed this diversity of single malts to now appear. I think would be fair.
That's great. Gordon, I think we'll get into more of the meat and drink of the Insider's Guides later on in the show. But just as an overview of Ian McLeod Distillers, you already mentioned Isle of Skye, and you're held up at Glengoyne. Could you run through some of the brands that Ian McLeod have got under their wings?
Ooh, yeah, there are a few really.
Yes.
Well, of course, Tam Do is great. Tam Do. Oh, you want me to list them? Tam Do, Glengoyne, Rosebank, which we're rebuilding. So Rosebank is actually just a pile of bricks at the moment.
Pile of bricks and a few old casks.
There are a few old casks. But no, there's some concrete on site now too, and they're getting on with rebuilding Rosebank, and I'm pretty hopeful it will be ready Q3 next year.
Exciting.
Yeah, Tam Do, Glengoyne, Rosebank. We've got Smokehead, which is a single isle of malt. With
we'll get into the story of that a little bit later.
Story of that. I'm sure you covered that at one point. What the hell was that, Gordon?
That's his Smokehead skull that he.
Yes,
you made that yourself.
He wears that out walking the dog round Bear's Den.
It's a mask of my wife.
Deep down, you two are quite disturbing, really.
That's the Smokehead.
Is it disturbing or disturbed, the word to use?
But you've also got this. You've also got labels. I did a tasting last week of As We Get It, as well.
Yeah. As We Get It was done was a Scottish brand. I think it was Thompson's of Perth. In fact, I think it might have been the first independent bottling of whiskies. I think it went on in the 60s, and we picked that business up. We supplied it at one point, and then we bought the brand name for a few years ago. And I went to a bar in Japan, and God, they're amazing, those whiskey bars in Japan. Amazing. And when talking to the barman, he had As We Get It, and he was really proud of it. And the As We Get It Isla, he said, was one of his favourite whiskies.
Yeah,
and
I love it too.
That bottle was 20 years old. He must just take a tiny sip out of it occasionally.
Yeah, I mean, I think the latest release of As We Get It Isla was 65% alcohol in a refill bourbon cask. I mean, it is genuinely As We Get It. It's beautiful stuff if you like that kind of whiskey.
It does what it says on the label, doesn't it?
It absolutely does what it says in the tin,
Yeah, that's somewhat basic marketing.
Yeah, no,
We've
absolutely.
got better since, but yeah. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, blends. We don't talk about blends in the industry that much. And I'm I think blends need a lot more love and attention.
Couldn't agree more.
I think that, and we can create some amazing blends because we've got some old grain whiskey and old malt whiskey. So I like the idea of doing more on the old blend. We can do 18, 21, 25-year-old blend, which I think we're going to do under the Isle of Skye label.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very...
Isle of Skye, just for the avoidance of doubt, is a blend.
Yes.
And we bought it from the McLeod family because they left Skye, but it was blended for Skye using local malts. You can guess which ones they might be.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's in the same category as Black Bottle, and I think there was Bell's Islander as well. So Isle of Skye, although it's not a particularly big brand, it does seem to be a whiskey drinker's whiskey because it's a little bit peaty.
Yeah, I love it. It's a great whiskey.
I like it too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know it's amazing how many times I go around the world and talk to it, and people mention Isle of Skye, and it's a well-known blend. And
well, it's always been 8 years old. It was always an Isle of Skye 8 years old, and then Bell's were having a difficult time, and they changed to 8 years old in the UK.
Yeah,
and then dropped it again. But we're still there, steadfastly selling the same stuff, albeit in not vast quantities.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. And there's a whole load of other brands like, Six Isles.
I love that
great brand as well. And then there's, King Robert, which I think, we mentioned King Robert on here a few times. King Robert is a big, big brand, isn't it?
Yes. Would you like to know the King Robert story? Why I think it's so great and why it does so well?
Absolutely. Yeah.
King Robert is a good value blend.
Yeah.
But as we know, malt whiskey matures more slowly than grain. So grain whiskey is good to drink at 3 and 4 years old. But I find malt whiskey at 3 or 4 years old still to be a bit young, a bit fruity. And so I shouldn't really announce this, but King Robert uses older single malts is the secret behind it. Not such a huge percentage. But and it's won awards, which is embarrassing, really, because it's to beat the better known international brands with something that is considered value for money.
Is it more export? I don't particularly know it in this country, Leonard.
No, it sells a bit more than 500,000 cases spread around the world, but not much in Europe. It's big in the Gulf, in the UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, Oman. It's big in Mauritius. I used to look after that market.
Big in Mauritius, and I believe probably needs a bit of ambassadorial work in Mauritius, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I've got my hammer right in the corner.
I think you're on that list already, Gordon. There are a lot of people on it. And,
I don't know if you're allowed to tell us, but just to place IMD within the grander scheme of Scotch whisky, how many bottles of spirit are we selling? Or could you place the company so other people listening could work out roughly where we are in the grand scheme of things?
We're a modest, small to medium-sized enterprise. That's what we are. I think about 5 years ago, we stopped being a rounding error and became 1% of the industry. And I think that we're now pushing 2%, really.
And that in an industry dominated by 4 or 5 big players is significant.
Yeah, we have got bigger, but yes, we have got bigger, and I find that disturbing actually, because I'm determined that we retain the family independent entrepreneurial way that we work, really.
Absolutely.
I don't want to become too corporate.
Well,
I don't think we are yet.
That's great. That's just that was a little flavour of McLeod. And just on that point about being family, I think it might be. I've got a couple of questions for yourself, Leonard. Coming up In the Whisky Unscripted podcast, Series 3, Episode 8, we will be doing some quotes from Leonard Russell of the past and asking him, will he stand by them or stand them down? Hugh Dolly Parton, stand by your quote. That's coming up later on. But as a little flavour, I went to the Glasgow.
What's happening now? You're cornering me. I can premeditated. This is bullying. Premeditated bullying. That's what this is.
No. Listen, this is Glasgow Herald 2006. Is this true or false? We're reading the Da Vinci Code in 2006. You mentioned that in an article. Did you finish it?
No, I didn't. I left the book on a plane. Actually, do you know, I did. I got to about 20 pages left, and I left it on the plane.
Oh.
Yeah. So I then got a spare copy, but I still haven't finished it. Don't ruin it.
Have you watched
That's good. So that's true. So
they all die in the end, do they?
It's said in this interview, and this is just to tease what's coming up later on, that your best moment in business was on April the 18th, 2006. Can you remember what you said your best moment in business was? The hint is 3 years after you purchased something.
Oh, well, there you go. Then that was quite a good hint. So, that would almost certainly be buying Glengoyne Distillery from Edrington.
And that was tasting your first Glengoyne made under the IMD regime.
Oh, that's true. Yes, but it would only have been 3 years old.
Yeah.
They made very good whiskey at Glengoyne before we took them over. And in fact, it's the same people. They're just a lot older now. Really.
Yeah.
My question would be, have you had a better business moment? Has something come along that has maybe eclipsed?
Well, no, because I'm proud of that. But the Rosebank, reviving Rosebank is pretty cool, actually. We were extremely lucky to be able to maneuver into doing that, because the Rosebank brand name was owned by Diageo, but the site was owned by Scottish Canals, formerly the British Waterways Board. So we had a few deals to do to get that to come together, but it did, and I couldn't be happier about that.
I would imagine the day that came together, that was the moment when you realised T's had been crossed and dots had been put in.
Yeah,
that's it. Right.
To be honest, every day is great. To wake up alive is pretty great, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd give you that. And amazing the transformation, as you say, from that purchase of Glengoyne in 2003 to 2017 with Rosebank. And you were, if we take in that other gin distillery, that I know this is Whisky Unscripted, but gin, Edinburgh Gin, that Rosebank is effectively your fourth distillery now.
Yeah, crikey.
It's a heck of a change in under 20 years.
It is. What the hell have we taken on? We've taken on a lot, haven't we? But it's been driven by the people that we've taken on. The team that we've got, I think, couldn't be beaten. Really weird, strange variety of people. You've seen Disney's Ice Age, the movie. That's what
absolutely. People are very important.
Just to finish off, Leonard, and that was your best. I've got your worst moment here from that same article.
Oh.
Is this true? Your worst moment was opening a 50-year-old cask of whiskey to find it had completely evaporated. Who could have sold it for $2,000 a bottle? Is that true?
That was a bad day, wasn't it? But that happened. It does happen. It does happen.
It does happen. Yeah, it does happen. Absolutely.
You get leakers.
Yeah, no, you do. It's a real, we all sort of sit there and think, we still don't know what really ultimately goes on in a cask, but ultimately you open up a 50-year-old cask and there's nothing in it. You're like, oh.
There was still a bit of a smell, which actually added insult to industry. Injury, not industry. Insult to injury. Yeah.
Very, very good.
Well, that's amazing. Gordon, this is the part we ask you news, and I really think there's only one game in town really this weekend of the end of April 2021.
Yeah, so obviously Spirit of Spaceside Whisky Festival, we would normally all be up there as of probably today, welcoming guests at Tam Do, unfortunately, it's just come a little too soon for people. So it kicks off virtually this weekend, and we're doing a virtual tour of Tam Do. Which is actually on Thursday, so hopefully this comes out today, as it were. And we're also then tomorrow night we're launching our new Dalby Alley and single cask, which are whiskies that have just been so popular, and we're excited about that. So me and Sandy will be doing that, and then there's a whole load of other great things going on from other distilleries as well. But it's great that there's a virtual offering, and I think if you're interested in your whiskey, you can buy a sort of ticket, general admission ticket, gets you to everything, and it would be good to support it. So that is the main thing in town this weekend. And
they've done an exceptionally good job, that Spaceside Whisky Festival, really, and the way they've grown over the last few years.
They have,
and to be able to pivot it into a virtual thing is deeply impressive. I mean, the way technology's moved on for all of us is impressive.
It is, and I think it'll be a great 3 or 4 days. And obviously, I think with Spaceside Whisky Festival, there's obviously Isla as well. Isla Whisky Festival is at the end of May, and I think they're doing more as well. It's great that there is more opportunity for people with what's going on to still enjoy whiskies, buy tasting packs, all these sorts of things. And certainly,
sorry, Gordon, I was just saying, I've got Leonard in the room here who purchased a Spaceside Distillery. Could you take us through your thought processes of taking on a Spaceside Distillery? It was not opened. It was mothballed.
It had only been mothballed for a year, actually. Yeah, it was Tam Do was an unsung gem, really, within the Edrington portfolio. But they have other priorities: Macallan, Famous Grouse, Highland Park, and it's quite a big distillery, Tam Do. But we were unsure about it. But the stocks that they had were fabulous, and they'd been putting Tam Do into the same casks as Macallan, the same sherry cask. So there was this parcel of sherry matured malt every year up to 8 years old, and it was just fabulous. And so we thought, well, we'll use the Tam Do in other wood types in blends, and this rich vein of sherry matured Tam Do is our future. So Tam Do is now, I believe, the only single malt which is only ever matured in sherry casks. And when I say matured, I mean matured, not finished. I get people come out with sherry edition malts, and they haven't been matured in sherry, have they?
No, a lot of them are. No, I agree, and I think the sherry finish is a very different style of whiskey, and when you fully mature, you see a very different type of whiskey. And to do that with Tam Do, as you say, for me, what I love about it is a commitment to a particular style, and that's really, really crucial. And I know that's something that you were very passionate about, Leonard.
I'm very passionate about that. That's a great, strong commitment. So Tam Do is the only malt that's only ever matured in sherry casks, and let's hope we will always be like that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And where we lead, others follow, Gordon.
Absolutely.
We might only be a rounding error in the industry, but doing the right thing.
If you're wanting to watch me, people are watching you, and they will probably follow. Speaking of following, this will go maybe too late because Sandy is taking a virtual tour of the distillery on the opening day of the Spaceside Festival 2021. My question to both of you is if you could remote control Sandy, which I suppose you'd like to try and do.
Well, you can't control Sandy in any way.
Where would you stop him? Which part of Tam Do would you stop him and say, pause, I want to have a look, inside or out? Each one of them.
In the warehouses.
Wow.
That's the best place at Tam Do, is in the warehouses. The smell is
special.
Superb, really.
Special. And I mean, the other thing that maybe people aren't aware, obviously with the limitations on space at Glengoyne, you know, Tam Do is a big sort of site now with new warehouses and cooperages and you know, new filling stores and all these types of things, which has made Tam Do a real sort of industrial centre for Ian McLeod, hasn't it? In terms
Yes,
of,
it has. Yeah, yeah.
in terms of what
it's a
we're
great distillery, great distillery with a great distillery manager and great people working there.
Yeah. Cheers to Tam Do.
And they obviously know what they're doing because it's delicious.
It's delicious. The 12 is very good. Well, just as we're having a drink, gents, I hope you don't mind a little diversion, a little break, because it's not the only story in town. I've uncovered news, a connection, I believe, between the Scotch whisky industry and the recent Oscars. Now, I was hoping you would maybe help me out in this one. This is world exclusive stuff, and I think there's been secret payments made. So, Leonard and Gordon, could you connect?
Can I just say before you go any further, it's lovely to be nominated.
I'd like to thank my family and my family's family and my neighbour's dog. But is this a connection? Could you connect the Best Picture Oscar? Okay, start thinking. The Best Picture Oscar to a whisky drink matured in Scotland, then blended by Richard Patterson from 25 single malts and 6 green whiskies before being sent to Jerez to be finished in PX casks by the Gonzalez Baez team under the guidance of the master distiller Antonio Flores. What is the connection between the Best Picture Oscar and that whisky?
Leonard?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
I think the answer is there was a whiskey a few years. I think it's still Nomad.
Correct answer. And the Best Picture Oscar went to Nomadland. Francis McDormand. Nomad. Have you ever tried it?
I have tried it, and I'll tell you how that was. I was living in Taipei, and we'll come on to Taipei in Taiwan because I know it's a part of the world close to Leonard's heart, and also Leonard's son Tom is currently out there. I was speaking to him the other day. But I was living in Taipei in 2014, and a lot of the guys came out, and they were doing a launch of this whiskey in Taipei. So I did try it out there.
Oh.
It's not particularly my style of whiskey, but it was very pleasant.
And Leonard, Richard Patterson, are you familiar? I know you know
Yes,
Mr.
I
Patterson.
do know him very well. Yes, of course I do.
Yeah.
And
So
so
that's
Richard, how long has he been in the industry? 55 years or something?
He's been, yes, and he's had 23 different managing directors.
Like a football manager.
He has.
Yeah.
The nose, Mr. Patterson.
He's
Gents,
unstoppable. He's unstoppable. I did once see him without a silk tie on.
No way. I've never seen that.
I saw him, without a silk tie, and he didn't have a
Cravat either.
Either or cravat. No.
Oh my God. I've never seen that. That's amazing. Did you get a photo?
No, I didn't even allow photos.
Richard Patterson. So the connection continues. So I think the secret money being paid because if the Oscar for Best Documentary Film is on Netflix involved an 8-legged cephalopod, and you can connect that to a famous blended whiskey dating to 1830 who built Ardmore Distillery and are now owned by Suntory Holdings.
You've done far too much research, Gordon.
8-legged cephalopod that lives in the ocean.
Well, all I would say is teachers. So I'll tell you the story about Ardmore Distillery.
Yeah. And the answer is, by the way, my octopus teachers. Carry on.
Okay. Very good.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay. So Ardmore, it's a little bit tenuous, but we'll go with it. Ardmore Distillery was named after, actually, it's up in the Highlands, but it was named after, I've said this before on here, named after a peninsula of land very near where I'm from, which is Helensburgh, because the teacher family had a holiday house on that peninsula. And it's called Ardmore Point, which is just, there you go. That's where Ardmore
Distillery. And I think Richard Patterson, his family, Helensburgh as well.
Oh, are they? Oh,
yes.
Right, okay.
I've read his book, The Nose. And I'm waiting for yours, Leonard, as well. I'll read that. So we have the couple more questions.
What would I call mine? The R.
Oh, there's
no.
I'm reworking that one. I don't know if you're into animated movies from Pixar, but the Oscar for the best animated movie from Pixar is obviously being funded by Pernod Ricard because they brought out a non-alcoholic spirit drink in 2019.
Right.
Non-alcoholic spirit drink.
Yeah. Brown spirit drink, 2019. Pernod Ricard launched it created by Craig Hutchinson, founder of and the director of gin alternative called Cedars.
I don't know. Nemo?
Right. Nearly. The Oscar went to Soul, and the whiskey's called Gothic Soul. Oh, and right. I just wanted to ask Leonard and yourself, Gordon, let me just see. Nielsen said that the low and no alcohol category 2 years ago was worth £107 million, 24.2% rise in a year of non-alcoholic spirit consumption. What's your thoughts there, Leonard, in that sector of the market?
Well, I think that there is a room in the industry, in the category for adult soft drinks, because drinking and driving is not acceptable.
Yeah.
And I think that market was maybe underserviced. So I know that Seedlip have done quite well. It's not my thing. We as a company are not going to do it really. My personal view is I'd rather have a ginger beer really than a herby water. But it's quite interesting, and the no alcohol beers taste pretty good.
They do.
Had some last night.
15 years ago they were pretty ropey, but some of them now are pretty good.
Yeah, I had some last night. I wanted to remain sharp for today's culmination of my Oscar connection quiz, which finishes with this last one. Won Oscar for makeup and styling, and the lead actress was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. Viola Davis portrayed the mother of the blues in a Netflix movie. Ma Rainey. Could you connect that movie to a Scotch blended whiskey bottled by Burns Stewart, created in 1879 by Charles David and Gordon Graham? And Leonard's mentioned it already. Ma Rainey's
Black Bottle
is the correct answer. It's
very
indisputable.
So it's 3-0.
It's indisputable.
It's a team effort, Leonard. It's a team effort.
No, it's indisputable that you two do know a lot more about Scotch whisky than I do, really.
So, Leonard, one of the things we've done is people love to get the inside track. And so we've done it from production, through maturation, but we've never done it from an overview of owning a distillery. So as somebody now who's, from 2003 to 2011 to 2016 with Edinburgh Gin to 2017 with Rosebank, you bought a distillery that was working. You bought a distillery that was mothballed and very well mothballed. And you bought a distillery that, to be honest, was just full of pigeon shit.
Yes.
For want of a better, well, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so I'm intrigued as a sort of, company owner who's had those sort of, what are the challenges involved? What are the things that you think, right, we're buying a working distillery that's got a bit of a name. We need to continue that on. We've got Tam Do, which has been mothballed. We want to change direction with that a little bit. And Rosebank has such a wonderful history and legacy.
Great plan, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
Well, you just, opportunities present themselves. And if they seem like they're, of course, the secret to success are the deals that you don't do, actually. But Glengoyne was the right time because single malt was growing. Tam Do was the right time because there was a shortage of stock and we needed additional distillation capacity, and they had some great stocks. And Rosebank is quite obvious. It just needed to be done. Someone had to do it.
And I love that point you just said. It's the deals you don't do. That's a really, really interesting, because I mean, I think if you look at what's even happening in the last year or so, there's a lot more. I think that, do you see there being a bit more consolidation going on now with all these new distilleries? And do you think there'll be a bit more of that going on? A bit more?
I don't know what's going to happen with the new distilleries. Some of them have got some very good plans. And we're a helpful industry. So I tried to talk several people out of it, because if you can't talk them out of it, that just goes to show that they're determined to do it. And without extreme determination, these things are difficult. I mean, there are considerable hurdles in the way to build or reopen a distillery. CEPA, many issues. But I was unsuccessful in talking Bill Weems out of King's Barnes, Adelphi out of Ardnamurchan, and who else did I tried to talk the Lindors, what's his name, Mackenzie Smith. But I didn't manage, and so they did it, and that was good. I mean, because there's a big commitment to make, and of course, the whole problem is you build a distillery. There's no cash flow. You can't sell anything until it's single malt, which is 3 years old. And I don't think it's a good idea to launch your whiskey at 3 years old because still quite young. So, I mean, when it comes to Rosebank, when do you think, what age do you think the new Rosebank should be before we start bottling it?
When it's fabulous.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. I thought you were going to say 8 years old, and I was going to say no, when it's fabulous. But yeah, probably it's around eight years old.
Probably,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, probably. So I mean, yeah, we're not going to have a new Rosebank whiskey for, let's say, 9.5, 10 years. So probably. You know, that's the thing you forget, and that's the bit that's really intriguing from a perspective of a business. It's a unique business model, owning distilleries, in terms of investment return.
It's a very long term.
Yeah, exactly. Unlike any other business, really.
Yeah.
And with this insider's guide, we've spoke to Sean the Cooper at Tam Do. We've spoke to Sandy, a manager at Tam Do as well, and Katie Muggeridge from that brand management. So I've always asked them, is there a typical day? I'm guessing there isn't, Leonard, but have you got a typical day out with this whole pandemic for being a managing director of a company like this?
No, there's no typical day. That's why I love my job so much. I have to speak to the same people over and over.
And I think that's probably true of all of us. And I think that, you know, there is no, but I think the last year has been a little bit more different, than a bit more samey, I guess, than the years before. But that's why I do what I do, Gordon. I'm sure it's why you do what you do. And I guess it's the diversity this industry offers, isn't it?
It is, yeah. There's so much going on.
But Leonard doesn't get ticked off if he's late.
That's another question.
Not now that I work from home. Well, I do. Now that I work from home, I get ticked off by the rest of my family, actually. Also, the best time to do tastings apparently is in the morning. So when my wife comes downstairs and sees me with a row of whiskies in front of me at 9:15, she had to have a couple of conversations about that one.
Working,
and it isn't good when you have to go back to bed at lunchtime, because
one of the questions I would like, it's a couple of questions that I would like to, it's the same type of question. As you've mentioned about buying a distillery, and you've mentioned a couple of owners of these other new distilleries. So is there an organization of owners that are friendly with each other? You get together and have a chat like there is industry for brand managers. I know they get together. Do you have such a body?
Yes, we meet at there are industry lunches, the North British lunch, the Scotch Whisky Association. We all meet up at their annual general meeting. There are lots of opportunities. Some people play golf. There's an industry golfing society. Yeah, we meet up a lot. And as you alluded to earlier on, distilleries exchange their new make spirit with each other in order to make blends. So Glengoyne and Tam Do, for example, are both included in a couple of large international blends, not owned by us. So we meet each other very often. And as an industry, I believe that the Scotch Whisky Association is an extremely strong and successful trade body who've done an excellent job at clearing the way at getting GI, geographical indicator. What does GI stand for? Getting Scotch whisky as registered as a category, and protecting us as an industry from counterfeits and other monkey business.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, we do all know each other well.
And one question, I think, you look at the depth and variety of this industry that we work in from a single malt perspective, as well as brands and blends and all that sort of thing. Who else do you admire? Who else do you think, I like what they're doing? I think they're great. I think, you know, is there anybody that you think, yeah, or any distillery that you think, oh, I wish I could own that? Or is there anything out there that you think, oh, I'd love, you know, what is another ambition for you, Leonard, in this industry? You've bringing back Rosebank, you're creating great brands. What else would you like to achieve, if you know what I mean? Or would you like
windsurfing? I'd love to be able to windsurf.
Get to Tyree.
No, I mean, yeah, of course we've got aspirations, but I don't really want to say what they are in the public domain. But and we've got enough distilleries, and we've now got quite a lot of debt because we're rebuilding Rosebank, and that the original budget for that has now tripled.
Yeah,
24 million it's going to cost. So I believe we're building the Edinburgh Gin Distillery right behind Waverley Station in Edinburgh. In the Arches, like the Mitchell brothers.
Yeah.
So there's plenty to do, and by the time we've got any headroom to make more acquisitions, it'll be a few years.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, I totally get that. I just was meaning, you know, you've been in the industry so long, and that brings me to, and you have to tell us a story. That wonderful story of the brand that we have, but we obviously don't have the distillery, Smokehead.
Yes.
Smokehead is, you know, we've seen this, it's the fastest growing single malt in the UK. So it's a very, very strong brand for us and a very important brand, but it's not very old, is it? And the story is very unique about how this came about.
Yeah. I went to the Isla Whisky Festival by boat. Actually, we bought Glengoyne, and Glengoyne is unpeated. It's the barley is heated with warm air. So a friend of my father's has a gin palace boat, and we went to Isla with pirate flags. And some of your friends came down and threw peat at us, I think. Anyway, we had a hell of a. It's all a bit. It was a great party. And I was standing in a bar, and I didn't realize that Isla Whisky has such an amazing following, and that it was young people and Scandinavians. And so I started drinking with a motorbike gang of Swedes, and one guy had tattooed himself with all of the logos of the Isla distilleries, had a big L for Lagavulin and all over his legs. And I thought, I'm going to make a brand that he tattoos himself with. And I hope he hasn't, because we've changed the logo since.
It's an amazing.
Yeah, because and the idea behind Smokehead is, I mean, it is a very good whiskey, but
very good, yeah.
We don't talk about all the things that whiskey connoisseurs would talk about.
No.
It does what it says on the tin.
It's a genuine disruptor, and it's a genuine brand, which, you know, we're happy to say we're from Isla, but that's it, really. You know, the other brands on Isla can talk about it to its heart content. We talk about, you want to drink smoky whiskey, come and drink Smokehead, you know, and it's the attitude I like, which makes it very unique.
Where did Smokehead come from? Great name. And that is an epitome of a smokehead, the guy that was in the biker gang standing beside you at the bar. But did the name just pop into your head or someone's head on the way back?
Well, we were thinking these people, these consumers really love smoke. So I thought, well, you get coke heads and pot heads, so why not have smoke?
That's brilliant.
Absolutely. Fabulous. Leonard, wow, it's been great to have you on. That's an hour already.
All right, okay, can we just very quickly, I teased at the beginning, stand by or stand down. Cue Dolly Parton. Are you standing by these or standing down? You said, no, keep going forward. Always keep going forward. We've been fairly opportunistic in our growth over the years, and now I think it would be decidedly dull to sit still. Are you standing by that quote or standing it down?
No, I'm certainly standing by that one.
Absolutely, I would be. That's fantastic.
Brilliant. Here's another Leonard Russell quote. If we don't sell any 12-year-old whiskies this year, we can sell some 15 in 3 years' time. Actually, the lazier you are, the more valuable you become. That's a quote.
Yeah. Well, it is true. I mean, yes.
In whiskey terms, it's true. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't try to. We distill whiskey slowly, but slow is the word, not lazy, really.
Yeah. And another one. You've said it already. Stand by or stand down. I know I'm fortunate to be able to ponce around this industry, which is the best in the world because we are friendly to each other. I'm the luckiest person I know. Is that still the case, Leonard? Stand.
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah, it is. It is.
Great. Stand by. He's not standing down. And the last one in the stand by or stand, and so far you've stood by them all. On the 8th of July 2006, you said, and I quote, "As for me, I am unemployable. If I sold the company, I would probably be exited. I don't want to sit at home in the garden, even though I could probably afford an expensive gazebo. I love my job and I enjoy getting up in the morning." Is that still the case? Stand by or stand down?
Stand down. I don't like getting up in the morning. And at the beginning of lockdown, I bought a hammock for 92 quid, but it's got a stand. And I've used that quite a bit, actually.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah. But I don't like getting up early in the morning, but I like working late at night, so that's fine.
By all the quotes apart from the morning. So, Leonard, that's been wonderful. Gordon, I don't know if you have anything to ask, but I'm going to recharge my glass and have a toast.
And this is episode number what?
36, I think.
36.
Yeah.
So you've had 35 people you'd rather speak to than me, is it?
No, not at all. No, we've had to. I mean, we've spent a lot of time having to get your time in your diary. But
you've got people trying to get past Leonard's people. You get people, and we couldn't get past them. And 36 is an auspicious number in certain countries of the world, so that's why we waited.
Leonard, it's been a pleasure, and thank you very much for inviting me on. I've really enjoyed this, and
we've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you for coming on. It's great, and people love our little podcast. So thank you.
I love it too. And honestly, to get 36 episodes going and for people still to be interested in it is amazing.
I'm absolutely flabbergasted, to be honest. Cheers.
Well done, and carry on.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Leonard. Cheers, Gordon. Slanjivar, folks.
Slanjivar.
Posting ahead on the whiskey trail.